All right, guys, so today is the video you guys have been waiting for, the video I've been waiting to do. We are so close to Conor McGregor versus Dustin Poirier 2, UFC 257. I cannot wait to watch that live with you guys. But before we do that, today's the breakdown video. We are going to break down how Dustin wins, how Conor wins, their strengths, weaknesses, and at the end of the video, we're going to predict a winner. And if you guys know anything from being here at the W.A.D.E concept, is that we pick winners. Let's get going. The final prediction / breakdown, UFC 257, Conor McGregor versus Dustin Poirier. Who wins and why? Let's go. So first off, Dustin Poirier. Okay, so since their first fight, Dustin Poirier has evolved in a couple of different ways, and he's also kind of stayed the same in others, but he has become a champion level fighter. Right? You can't dispute that. He has held gold. He beat Max Holloway for the interim title, albeit lost to Khabib for the undisputed lightweight title, but he is still a championship level fighter and now a member of the 5-round club, and really, I would say one of the kings at 155 of that 5-round club. He has fought in 5-round fights and looked really good doing it as the fight progresses. So the biggest strength for Dustin Poirier, in my opinion, is his ability to endure the grind, the grit. He's found somewhere inside himself when things go bad, not to panic, not to get flustered like possibly he did in that first fight, but to find a way through it and then come out of the other side successfully. So then we look at what that means for this fight and how Dustin can channel that grit, heart, and toughness into this fight with Conor McGregor. And put simply, it means he's going to have to weather a storm early on from Conor McGregor. We all know that Conor starts lightning fast. He's done it in pretty much every fight, even in the first 5 seconds. Watch Cowboy Cerrone and Conor McGregor. He throws the left-hand rocket missile from his shoulder. It misses completely, but just the momentum carries his hip into Donald's face. Like, he's going to start quickly. He started with a hook kick the first time against Dustin. He started with a spinning back kick many a times in his first exchange. He will start lightning fast, and if you are not ready, when they say go, he's going to jump on you, and he's going to jump on you quick, and it's going to be a very quick night. Dustin has to be able to endure a barrage early on. And that doesn't mean Dustin becomes a bobblehead for a round and a half and hopefully survives. No, it means he needs to use his technique. He needs to be able to shell up. And in my opinion, he needs to get a little closer to Conor, because at range, Conor's a sniper, and Dustin's always had problems at range with snipers. But if Dustin is able to endure and they get into those 3rd and 4th and 5th rounds, I know it's a big talking point for everybody that Dustin's just got it made in the later rounds. I don't necessarily believe that's true, but I do believe it helps Dustin's odds significantly if he's able to weather that storm early on and then put that pressure on Conor that really Conor only gets pressured in when he's tired. You watch Dustin in his last fight versus Dan Hooker, and we're going to talk more technically in a little bit, but watch him just endure through that fight. Watch him just get hit with shot after shot. There's a big knee that lands on him late in the 2nd round, and that wobbles him. And Dustin comes right back in round 3, and they are just trading shots. And Dustin has said in the lead up to this fight that he does want a war. He wants to be bloodied in that 1st round and really push it and see who's the better fighter over those 5 rounds. And while I think that Dustin's grit, his determination, all that is his biggest strength, it also could be his biggest weakness, because when you fight a guy like Conor McGregor, toughness, grit, and heart are not enough. And you've seen it time after time for guys that just walk on the shots. Eddie Alvarez is a tough, gritty fighter that never gives up. And sometimes that's a detriment, because you will continue to walk on the shots. You will continue to absorb shots, because the more Conor touches you, the more susceptible you are going to be as that fight continues, especially as quickly as he starts. I do believe Dustin needs to go through the storm. I believe he's going to have to endure some shots from Conor McGregor, or some pressure or some flurry from Conor McGregor early on. I think it's simple that we know that's going to happen. But I don't mean that he should just open up a metal-laced umbrella and say, hey, I'm going to walk through this storm. I hope I don't get struck by lightning, because you absolutely will, more than once. Conor will stick you. Now let's talk about improvements technically since the first Conor McGregor fight. What has Dustin improved technically that you would point to and say, this might come into play when he battles a guy like Conor McGregor? And I would say it's his grappling ability, his offensive grappling ability, his defensive grappling ability, which I don't know how much of it is going to be shown, but it is a nice little added bonus to have if you're Dustin Poirier, if you do get in trouble. If Conor does get a little too close and he overextends, which we've seen Conor sometimes do with that left hand like a baseball pitch, and you can double leg a guy like Conor and just at least hold him on the ground for a little bit to weather that storm a little easier than just taking shot after shot. I do think Dustin can land leg kicks on Conor McGregor. We saw he's kind of the only guy that's ever been successful at landing the leg kicks that are supposedly the Conor McGregor stopper, because Conor is so front leg heavy. So if Dustin can use those leg kicks again early, I think it's a good idea, because it gets Conor's attention and it helps him get through those first couple of rounds relatively unscathed. Dustin has implemented something new into his game at least recently, that I hadn't seen him do a lot before, but now I see him continuously doing it now. And again, it's a strength, but it could become a weakness. What it is, basically Dustin decides he's going to go from southpaw into orthodox position while punching, not just switching stance, but punching into stance, moving forward into range while also switching stance. He throws out the straight left, which then becomes a jab as he turns to orthodox, and then the big right overhand comes over the top. I've seen him do it time after time to cover distance, get into range, and to give the other fighter a different look because they're not used to him throwing out of orthodox position out in the open, right? On the cage is a little different, but out in the open. So he's fully invested in this technique, and while it works, and when it does work, he has a nasty overhand right out of orthodox, but when it doesn't work, it leaves him super vulnerable to counter shots. Dan Hooker popped him with a jab. Again, Dan Hooker, an orthodox fighter, popped him with a jab multiple times as he tried to use that switching of stance to move forward. Conor, out of the southpaw position, that basically lines up a straight left hand down the pipe. To me, honestly, if Dustin continues to do that and does it without any kind of setup other than just throwing the left hand out there to try to get a reaction out of Conor, we know he doesn't take a back step. He instead baits you into throwing it out and then counters over the top. If he continues to do that, that could be the sequence that flat out ends the fight. So to sum it up for Dustin Poirier, yes, there 100% are ways he can win this fight, and it is to try to drag Conor into deeper water, that third, fourth, and fifth round, but doing so safely in the early rounds, right? Not getting backed up early on that Conor does to people. You have to get his respect early with some shots inside. So that means maybe changing levels on Conor, something he's not expecting out in the open, not to get a takedown, but to get him to defend a takedown, to get those hands away from his face, underhooks underneath, and then you can pop up, start throwing shots to the body, push Conor back behind the back line, and you get through that first and second round relatively unscathed, and you've made Conor work defending takedowns. These are things that he can definitely do. Accumulation of strikes, volume, and pressure on the guy that pressures everybody else is the way to get it done. Don't get backed up, grapple when he needs to, get out of rounds 1 and 2 relatively unscathed, find safe entries into Conor's guard, and land combination strikes on the inside. That's what I think Dustin has to do. On the other side, we have Conor McGregor, and I think we all know what Conor McGregor brings to the table, but I will remind you guys, his left hand is not his greatest strength. I know it's the one-hitter quitter. It's the one that puts everyone away. He hits like a 12-gauge shotgun. This is definitely a part of it, but it's these. Conor sees everything, and when he starts to see tendencies, when he starts to see early on your reactions to how well he pressures forward, he's going to make those reads, and he's going to make them quickly. So if you start to double up things or you start to lean a certain way, Conor's going to make that read instantaneously. And then the second in command, it comes out and starts looking for heads to peel off. That's Conor's game plan most of the time. And really, it's simple here. Skill for skill, Conor McGregor at distance, with his timing, with his precision, is a better fundamental striker than Dustin Poirier is. Now, when things even up is if Conor starts to get tired, if he can't put Dustin away and his fatigue starts to take over, and then he gets a little sloppy, and then Dustin starts to grapple, and he gets inside on Conor and starts landing big shots in the clinch, things will start to even out a little bit, and Conor won't have the same pop on his shots that he does, from the first second of the fight. For Conor to win this fight, it's going to be more of the same for him. He's going to pressure Dustin. He's going to push him back on the back foot, or at least try to early on, and he's going to force some shots out of Dustin. We've seen that when Dustin gets pressured and when he gets pushed on the back foot and he's back on the cage, he will come out swinging, and that is for the bleachers. And again, Conor takes advantage of those things. He will step back, measure the shot, and throw the piston down the middle in between all that chaos. He has a sniper-like ability. I know I keep using that word, but that's what he is. And Dustin struggled with that the first time when Conor hit him with a clean shot right behind the ear. Before that, Conor hit him with clean shots early in that fight. So for Conor, again, it's put pressure on Dustin early. Make him feel those shots. Make him feel the difference of your shots at 155 versus 145. And again, bait him into throwing some of those wild looping shots so that you can come underneath with something slick. Technique-wise, I love Conor's spinning heel kick to the body. I think that's one of his best setups. I think it's one of his best range finders, and his ability, again, to be like a cattle herder and rein that opponent back into the range he wants him to be in, because once he's throwing a lot of this stuff out, the opponent's slipping and dodging the way that Conor wants them to. He sees the read, and then again, the left hand comes behind it. While I did say that Dustin will have more success if he grapples, pushes Conor into clinch situations, and then drags the fight into later rounds, that is not a 100% guarantee that it'll be successful, because Conor has now shown, even against Donald Cerrone, that in the clinch, he does bad things to people. And if he can find anything to hit you with in situations like that where he's grappling and he's in the clinch, he definitely will take some shots on you. So Dustin's definitely not safe there. And as far as the grappling, I think Conor is definitely underrated as a grappler. whether that's his takedown defense. I mean, he swept Nate Diaz in their first fight. I don't think anybody gives him the credit for sweeping a Renzo Gracie black belt. But if Dustin does decide he wants to grapple with Conor early on and maybe level change and push him into the cage, and Conor handles that pretty well, you could see again some of that stuff that we saw in the Eddie Alvarez fight, where Eddie just had no way to put Conor out of his comfort zone. He couldn't pressure him. He couldn't do anything to him when he got him on the cage in the clinch. There was nothing that Eddie could do there. You're on an island with one of the best snipers in the game, and you got to figure it out from there. And Conor is just waiting for you to make a mistake. And once you do, again, he puts you down. All right, so finally it's prediction time. And I know I said a lot, guys. I said a lot in breakdown of this fight, but I think it's really simple what this fight comes down to, and the X factor in this fight. At the end of the day, it comes down to two things for me. Who's technically better? And that's Conor, in my opinion. Who's going to showcase it in a way the opponent can't answer? And again, I think that's Conor, because if Dustin does start to accumulate, if Dustin does start to grapple, if Dustin does start to push Conor into the later rounds, Conor has answered that bell before. Now, granted, he struggled with it, and his cardio has failed him a couple of times, but he has answered that bell in the Nate Diaz second fight. He answered the bell in the grappling exchanges with Chad Mendes. He answered it with Khabib in their third round, although Khabib did take him down in the fourth round and finish that fight. I don't think that Dustin has the answers for the strengths of Conor McGregor, because it doesn't seem like, of all the things that Dustin's developed, he hasn't developed a way to handle a precise counterpuncher as he moves forward on them, or a precise counterpuncher as he exchanges with him. He hasn't found that answer yet. I think the first round is a little bit more back and forth. I think Dustin goes back to the leg kicks, but I do think Conor lands either one or two big shots later in that first round, and it gets Dustin's attention, maybe throws his equilibrium off. Maybe he comes into that second round not necessarily fully there, and Conor finishes the deal there early in the second. He lands a big shot, follows up, and gets Dustin out of there in the second round. I just think his timing, his precision, I think the fact that they've both been in there before and they both know what happened, it's a little harder, I would assume, for Dustin to get over the fact that Conor has that ability to put him out, whereas Conor is looking to go in there against a guy that he's already put out and already knows what the guy does well and has to do it again. I think that's a little bit of an easier play for a guy than trying to get over a devastating knockout loss, come back and try to beat that guy again when he possesses the skills to put you away again. I think Dustin's a great fighter. I think he's a phenomenal striker. I think he's one of the best at 55, but you hear this all the time in MMA, matchups make fights, and I really think this is a bad matchup for Dustin. It will always be that until he addresses how to close distance and avoid big shots while doing so against very precise counterpunchers. That is the video, man. Oh, finally, I get to make my prediction. I've been sitting on this thing for like 3 months, guys. You have no idea. I've been waiting to talk to you guys, to give you this information. Guys, I cannot wait. I get excited. Like, I'm getting goosebumps just thinking about watching it with you guys. On Saturday, be here, 4 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. We're going to watch this card together. It's going to be a banger. And we're going to see just who comes away from UFC 257, the #1 contender at 155 pounds. Will it be Dustin the Diamond Poirier or the notorious Conor McGregor? I guess we'll see.